The following clip is from the North to South Show, live every Monday and Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, where we talk SEC football everything. Now, we'd love to have you out for next show, but for now, hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button, and enjoy this clip. Let's talk about this in more SEC-specific terms and everything like that, because how would the 12-team college football playoff, should I say, and all these things that are being pitched, affect the SEC, and is it a good thing for the SEC? Would it hurt or hinder the SEC, or would it be a positive, something that SEC fans want, something that the conference in general wants, something that the teams want, and everything like that? Because I think that there are a lot of internal and external factors and everything like that that we got to think about this. That's what I'm going to kind of go through. I want to look at how will the 12-team playoff affect the SEC externally and internally at the same time. And I think you get different perspectives from the fans, you get different perspectives from the teams itself, different perspective from the conference. Again, I'm just a fan speaking my opinion and everything like that. I'm not saying that this is the players or teams' opinions or anything like that, but this is just how I see it. So I want to talk externally first, and I think that a 12-team playoff externally would be good for the SEC. And by what I mean by externally is outside of the SEC. So going up against teams like Ohio State and Oregon and your Clemson, all those other conferences that you have to compete with and everything like that, externally, this does look good for the SEC because all in all, the SEC is going to get at least 3 teams in the playoffs, probably 4 on average a year in the playoff if you have a 12-team playoff. I look at this season, you're getting Alabama, you're getting Texas A&M, you're getting Florida, and you're getting Georgia all in the playoff this season. I see no problems with that. There's no one that's going to argue with that. Those 4 teams easily make the playoffs. You go back a couple years ago, that Alabama team, that whatever lost to LSU, and yes, they did lose to Auburn, but you probably see them still squeak into the playoffs and everything like that. You're going to have LSU, you're going to have Georgia, you might even have Florida that season still squeak in. You're going to have Alabama in, and there's so many different teams that constantly. I'm looking at Ole Miss this season. I'm looking at your LSU this season could possibly compete for that 12th or 11th spot, something like that. Depends on how they do. I look at Florida competing for that spot. I think Texas A&M, Georgia, and Alabama are all locks for this season if they were to do this 12-team playoffs right now. But all in all, the more teams you're able to get in the playoffs, how could that possibly be bad for your conference? How could that possibly look bad? Because I think the SEC has the best teams, and I think it will be a good proven thing that when you put all these SEC teams into the playoffs and they have to pull together with your Iowa States, and they got to go up against your Oregons, and they got to go up against, because they're not going to play your Ohio States, Clemsons, and Oklahomas are going to be in the top 4, so you're not going to play them in the first round. But when you see a majority of SEC teams, maybe 4 out of 8 teams in that second round, I think that looks really strong for the SEC, because I think you could have really competitive games and good games and beatable games against, again, your Iowa States, your Oregons, your group of 5 teams, your North Carolinas this year, your Wisconsins, teams like that, those second teams in all those conferences, I think that you could definitely compete with and beat out to get 4 SEC teams in that 8th spot. So why is it a bad thing? Why should it even be an argument that the SEC, this would be a bad thing for the SEC if we can get more teams into the playoff and just look more competitive and just become even bigger of a beast than the SEC already is? Internally is where it looks bad. And internally, I think for the fans and everything like that is where a 12-team playoff really affects the SEC season. And last season, man, you look at an all-SEC slate, you look at an all-SEC season where you're just constantly going up against the best conference each and every single week, and you know each and every single game means something to your final record and your chances at an SEC championship and an SEC postseason and all that kind of fun stuff, college football postseason story, and getting into the playoff and everything like that. Why do we love our CBS games, which we're going to talk about in a second? We're going to do my predictions for who I think will be in each CBS game. Why do we watch those CBS games? Why do we watch the ESPN night games that the SEC teams get into? Why do those games mean so much to us? Why do the rivalry games and everything like that mean something to us? Because in SEC regular season and everything like that, you usually only get one mistake to still sever your season or savor your season, whatever you want to call it, to protect your season from still being able to go on and make a championship run. You look at Alabama and Auburn, it's usually one or the other. Whoever comes out of that game is going to have a postseason appearance. Now, I know 2017 is obviously an outlier because Auburn wins that game, but Alabama still moves on because Auburn didn't play well in the SEC championship, and then Georgia and all that confusing stuff. But you look at games like that, Alabama, LSU. It's not Alabama and LSU both going to the playoffs. Whoever wins that game, it's whoever wins that game, one's playoff opportunities is still alive and one's isn't. You look at games like Florida, Georgia. One team, whoever wins that game, their playoff hopes are still alive. Whoever loses, I'm sorry, but have fun in the Cotton Bowl, have fun in the Fiesta Bowl, have fun in the Tony the Tiger Bowl or the Cheez-It Bowl, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. That's what makes the SEC regular season so great. That's what makes college football the regular season so great. And I kind of touched on this, talking about how I think this impacts college football, but especially the SEC, man. These games that we all love, these Georgia-Florida games, these Alabama-LSU games, these Texas A&M LSU games, these games like, I think that I'm high on this game this season. I'm just going to throw it like Florida, Missouri. I know you might not care about it this season, but I think it'll be an interesting game. But all your certain rivalry games and those games that you circle on your calendar, like Alabama, Florida, stuff like that, doesn't matter if you have a 12-team playoff. It matters in some sense where you get a win in your win category and the other team gets a loss. And obviously, you still have, I think the main thing is, if you lose those games, you still have a chance at going to the college football playoff. You could lose back-to-back weeks. Alabama could go out this season, lose to Florida, lose to Ole Miss back-to-back weeks, but then still have a chance to go on, beat Texas A&M, beat LSU, beat all these other teams in the SEC, and still make it to the playoffs. Does that make any sense? I'm not saying Alabama will lose those games, but let's say that did happen. Alabama can still make the playoffs. Do you think a team that loses 2 games in SEC play deserves to make it to the playoffs? It just sounds so absurd, and it's just like, why do those games matter? Why do we play these games? Why was that Alabama-Florida game such a big deal to us? Because Alabama lost. Florida was able to go out and beat Alabama. Why did it mean anything, though? Because Alabama was still able to make it to the playoffs. Why did the Ole Miss game mean anything if Alabama was still able to make it to the playoffs? And all these different scenarios. And the SEC championship, too. It's not just the regular season. I talk about the SEC championship. Whoever makes it to the SEC championship with a 12-team playoff is going to make the playoffs, no doubt about it. So why would you risk your best players going up against the other team's best players? Because we all know the SEC is a physical conference. You're playing up against NFL talent each and every single day that you go up, touch the grass, and go on the field, go on the gridiron. Why would you risk your starting quarterback? Why would you risk your star left tackle? Why would you risk your star wide receiver? And all these kind of things in this meaningless game now. All you get to do is raise a SEC trophy at the end. You get shirts that say you're an SEC champion. You get a ring and everything like that. But that doesn't affect your postseason appearances and your postseason opportunities and everything like that if you lose that game. And that's where I think it really affects everything, because Alabama, Florida this season would have meant nothing. You would have gone LSU, Georgia 2 years ago, would have meant nothing. You look at all these great SEC championship games. You look at, you're like, I know this was before the playoff era, but some of your Alabama, Georgia SEC championship games, if you had a 12-team playoff back then, that game means nothing. It doesn't matter that Georgia lost that game because they're both going to the playoffs. It doesn't matter. The game doesn't have as much magnitude. Maybe Georgia sits a few guys. Maybe Alabama sits a few guys, and you just all in all get a less exciting game because you're missing your star players and everything like that. So externally, I think that for the SEC, it looks good that you're going to get multiple teams constantly in the playoffs and you're constantly going to be competitive. But for the SEC schedule and the SEC play that we all hold dear to our hearts, and the Saturdays that we love because we know on any given Saturday, your team's hopes and dreams can be ripped from you, or you could go out and rip some other team's hopes and dreams away from them. That'll all be gone because you can lose 2 games. You could lose a game, you could lose a big-time game, and it would mean absolutely nothing because you could still cakewalk to the playoffs. So that's my opinion on how it would hurt the SEC. I'm going to say it would hurt the SEC because the culture of the SEC is you're playing in the toughest conference. You get no mistakes. You have to get through this conference completely clean to be able to go make it to the postseason. That would be ripped away if we have a 12-team playoff. So I'm saying all in all, a 12-team playoff would hurt the SEC.